In business, time is money, and the easiest way to become more profitable or make more money is to become more efficient. In this video, I want to show you how we can take Bricks Builder and 2 additional tools to speed up your overall design process. This means you can build sites quicker, you can build them more consistently, and if you need to make changes for a client, you can do all of that super quickly. But you can still charge them the same amount of money and therefore, like I say, become more profitable. What are those 2 additional tools? Well, first of all, we want to take a look at a framework. My framework of choice is Core Framework. Once you've purchased this, you can use it as many times as you want on as many projects. If you want to use just the free version of Core Framework, you can do that, but having the Bricks plugin just makes everything a little bit smoother and easier. Next, we're going to take a look at a wireframe option like Brixies, which is my personal choice. We're going to use these as the basis because let's be brutally honest about it. Most websites, especially when you're working with clients that are not necessarily that imaginative, are going to follow very similar trends. This is where a wireframe platform like Brixies comes in super handy. You want to make changes? Easy, make changes, but you hit the ground running with a starting point. At least you can get feedback from a client and then make changes to make it more unique. Let's take a look at how we combine these 3 to start building out websites super quickly. Before we even start designing and using those 3 tools, we need to spin up a website. For me, I use InstaWP for this and one of my blueprints. But blueprints mean that I've got all the key configurations and everything I need installed, and I can just hit the ground running. All I need to do, there's my Bricks blueprint. I simply come over to the 3 dots and simply go down to the option to clone this, give it a name, reserve it, hit clone, and after about a minute, it's all set up, ready to go. I've already done that and I've got my website set up. Now I've got some additional plugins installed, but we're not even going to use those. We're literally going to stick to what I've just covered. Okay, so let's first of all go into Core Framework and see how I've got things set up here, because this is important. This is kind of the backbone of making those design changes really quick and easy. Now, I've got this set up to work with light and dark mode, and I'll show you that in a moment. First of all, under the color section, I've got my brand colors. As you can see, at this point in time, I've got primary, secondary, and tertiary. You can add or delete as you need to. I've also got this set up to work with light and dark mode. So this is why you can see the 2 color chips and the 2 color values. If I expand this to keep things super simple, I remove the transparent tints and the shades, and I just keep this to enable dark mode. If you want to learn more about this, I've got a video which I'll link here and down in the description that explains this in more detail. Okay, so there's our brand colors. I've got my background colors, my text colors, neutrals, and so on, my status. I've got some custom design elements for things like border. I also like to have a dedicated black and a dedicated white color because there are times where you want those to be exactly the same whether you're working in light mode or dark mode. Doesn't matter. So they're there. I've also got some options inside here for things like the layout, and I've got a custom section width which allows me to control whether I want my sections to be full width or whether I want to be a specific width. Again, design decisions. So all these options are set up inside here for typography, for colors, for spacing, layouts, design, all those kinds of good things. So now if we come into Bricks and we open up one of our pages, we'll start off with just the home page. As you can see, I've already got my header and footer set up. This is part of my blueprint. And if we come over into the option for settings and into theme styles, you can see I've got a bunch of values inside here, including a custom theme style called Brixies Global. This is where, once you've set up your wireframe, this is one of the key things that will speed up all of your design options. For example, if we come into general, you can see we've got the site background color, which is using one of my global colors, which we've got a simple palette, which you can expand and add those tints and shades if you want to afterwards. I keep it simple to start off with because it's just easier. You can also see if we come into colors, I've mapped all of the colors inside Bricks theme styles to the colors that I've created inside Core Framework. So my primary, my secondary, we use tertiary for things like info color. We've got light colors, dark colors, and so on. If we open these up, you can see they're just simply using those Core Framework colors. Because we've mapped them, we don't have to come back in here at any point. We can simply make that change inside Core Framework, and everywhere on our entire site, those changes will be reflected. Want to change your primary color? Change it to one place. All your buttons, your links, anything that references it, all changed. This is the beauty of working with variables when you're using something like Core Framework. Now you can do this directly inside Bricks if you want to. And again, I've got a video on how you can do this. I'll link in the description down below. But for ease, I like to have everything set up in Core Framework. It gives me a little bit more flexibility, in my opinion. Now, if you're getting value from this video, why not hit that subscribe button to be notified when new content like this is added? I release videos every single week, so by subscribing, you'll be notified when they're released. Anyway, let's get back to the tutorial. Okay, so if we come down now to things like typography, you can see that's all set up inside here for our headings and so on. If we come back out and we go into sections, you can see we've got a variable set for the width. This is using section width, which is that custom variable I set up, which is currently set at 100%, but I can change it to whatever I want. You come into the container, you can see this uses the max screen width, which is a setup inside Core Framework, which is set to, in this example, 1366. You kind of get the idea, hopefully, that by using these variables, we've got one source of truth, which is Core Framework, and everything inside Bricks is referencing it. Same thing goes for buttons, same thing goes for dividers and so on. So you can set all the values inside here. Save that then as a blueprint and you can hit the ground running every single time. So now if we take a look, you can switch between light and dark mode and everything reflects those changes accordingly if we want to use that functionality. Okay, cool. That's that all set up. Before we move on, let's take a moment to have a message from today's video sponsor, Omnisend. Now, if you're looking for a solid email marketing platform for your e-commerce store, look no further than Omnisend. Getting started is an absolute breeze. They offer some of the most affordable pricing on the market, and you can start with their free plan and experience premium features without spending a penny. It's the best quality to cost ratio you'll find anywhere. If you need help, rest assured, with Omnisend's award-winning customer support, you're always a priority. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year, and you'll get a response in less than 3 minutes, making you feel valued and important. Now, don't just take my word for it. Omnisend is a top-rated platform. With unbeatable pricing, powerful features, and exceptional support, the reviews speak for themselves. If you're ready to elevate your email marketing game, Omnisend is here to help. You could try Omnisend today and discover why they're the best choice for your e-commerce business. With unbeatable pricing, powerful features, and exceptional support. Link in the description down below. Now we want to start building our website. This is where our wireframe comes in. Now, the reason I like using Brixies is because this is set up to work with Core Framework. You could use it with other CSS frameworks as well, but Core Framework is the one I use and this works with it. So let's use this now as a starting point. Now you may be thinking, oh, that's fine, Paul, I could just end the video here and I can just copy and paste these over. You could do, but you're going to miss out on some really super useful little tips that'll mean that when you pull in the various different components here, you get more flexibility and you leverage the power we have with something like Core Framework. So first of all, let's come over and open up the options and choose the hero sections. Now, there are over 500 different designs here. So you've got tons of options broken down into various different categories. So you should be able to find most things that you need. And even if it gets you 80% of the way there and you have to create your own sections, so it's still got you 80% of the way there a damn sight quicker. So what we want is we want a nice hero image across the top. So let's find something from here that I think is going to be exactly what I'm looking for, or at least a good starting point. Okay, Hero Section 13 looks pretty cool. Now what you can do is you can rename these classes if you want to. So if you want, you can just pop in your own custom name here. So you may say this is like your homepage hero or whatever you want to kind of call it. Or you can leave it as default. Let's just call this Hero. We'll say rename and copy. And now we've copied that with our custom name. Now this is using BEM naming, which is block element modifier naming. So it's a standard naming convention that if you're using that and you're accustomed to it, it's very easy to work with. If you want to find out more about BEM naming, I've got some information down below, which I'll link to and you can take a look at to get an understanding. It's pretty simple, but it's incredibly useful. Hopping back into Bricks, let's go and paste that design in. We'll say, yep, we'll allow that. So there's our design pasted in. Now you can see if we expand this out, everything is broken down and named and given classes. So for example, this is our hero, which is what we named it. If we come to our image background, you can see this is hero _ img. In other words, we're using that BEM naming convention. Everything is stacked and built very, very logically and named very logically. It's all very simple to work with. So for example, let's choose this background. We'll come over to our content I've already uploaded a bunch of images that I've used AI to create. For this example, I'm going to choose this one and insert it. So we've now got our image set up. So if we switch between light and dark mode, you can see we've got a bit of a problem here. As you can see, we are using light and dark mode on the text, and this is why I like to have that black and white set up. It gives me ultimate flexibility. So let's go and deal with the first part of this, which is adjust or create an overlay. So we'll select overlay from the right-hand panel and we'll choose the class for it and come into our styles. And you can see a background has been set inside here. We don't want that one. We want to set this to be black because we want this to always be black. Choose that from the list and oh, it looks terrible. So let's just adjust the transparency on there. Take that down to maybe around there. That looks good. Okay, so we've now set a background so we can see the text a little better, but when we switch to dark, you can see it still falls apart. All we need to do is choose our heading in this example, select the class, and now we can come over and make changes here. Come into our color, change that from light, which will change between whatever we've got set for the light and dark modes, which we've set up in Core Framework. We'll set this to always be white. We'll also come in and change this over to be 4XL. So we're using and leveraging the flexibility we have using Core Framework. We'll also come down and say we want to change the weight of this to 600. You can set it to be all uppercase if you want to, or you can capitalize it. You know, all the kind of things you're used to doing. So now when we switch between light and dark mode, our hero section at the top stays consistent. Let's do the same thing for our description. So what we'll do is we'll select its class, change the color, set that again to be white so it stands out, and we'll choose our button, come over to our content, and you can see we've got light. We could choose any of these pre-designed ones, and because they're using our Core Framework variables, we've set exactly what they're going to be. So if our client comes along and says, instead of being yellow, we've changed our brand color to red, you simply have one place to change it, and everywhere that references that variable will automatically be updated. I'll show you that a little later. So let's say we want to put this as the info one, which is our kind of yellow color. Okay, so you can see that's our button now. If we switch over, cool. Looking pretty cool. Now, there's another thing I want to do. Because we've got a hero section and we've got a sort of sticky navigation at the top, that sits a little bit underneath it, which isn't what we want in this example. So we're going to select our hero. We're going to come over, we're going to create a class. Now, any time that I'm using something like a wireframe like this, which will have lots of classes associated with it, I'm going to create custom classes. And what I like to do is start these with global, because these are global to my entire site. So what I'm going to say is this is going to be global, and we're going to put hero spacing in. Hit enter or return, come into style, open up our layout, and we're going to come to our margins. We're going to right click and we're going to use and leverage the power of our CSS framework. We're going to set this to be 2XL. Nice. Now, because we've set that global class up here, when I create second page, third page, and so on, no matter what I put here, I can simply come up and apply that class to it, and it will automatically always put that 2XL spacing in there, which is again tied back into Core Framework. Hit save, and we are pretty much done with our hero section. But hopefully what you can see here, even doing this, is we're hitting the ground running. We're leveraging pre-designed layouts. We can customize those layouts. We're creating our own global classes. We're tying those into CSS classes created inside Core Framework and applying things to variables to give us maximum flexibility to make changes wherever we want. Okay, let's carry on. Let's switch this into dark mode because I want to kind of work dark mode being the kind of primary layout here. Let's minimize these. Let's go back into Brixies. And from there, we want to have some features. So let's take a look at the feature section. So inside the feature section, we've got lots of different layouts. You've got things like bento grid layouts and so on. All pretty cool. Let's find something that I think I like the look of. Yep, I like the look of this one. We could copy it. We can rename the class if we want to. So let's just click and rename this. Go to features and rename and copy. Head back over and we're simply going to paste this one in as well. Nice. So now we have our basic layout. Now, we've got to do a couple of little pieces of work here. If we expand this out, you can see we've got this CSS styles, and it's not following the kind of layout that we've just seen in the preview. So what we need to do is select that, and you can see this gives us a little bit of code that we need to apply. It tells us at the top what we need to do. So the root styles must go in the element of the structure with the name card. If we open this out, you can see there's our cards. So we need to make sure it goes in the relevant place. Let's select our container and we can pop it in there. So what we need to do is come over to the information here, grab everything that sits in the style, inside the style tags. We don't want to take the style tags in this example and copy it. Don't worry about leaving it there. We're going to delete it in a moment anyway. So to come back to our container, select our class, come into CSS, scroll down. We need to put the root inside here so it targets the root element. In other words, the element we've got selected. I'm using Advanced Thema, so I can just click here, but all you need to do is type in exactly what you can see there. We'll paste this in, and now that picks up the style that it should do, and we can delete that little note telling us what we need to do. Okay, cool. Now we've got the basis of our design going. Now, the problem we've got here is whenever you use something like this, if you use, for example, this tagline, you can see this is called features __ tagline. So again, we're using that BEM naming. Tagline features a lot in different layouts, but each time is going to have a different class associated with it based upon the name of the particular design we pull in. So we had one called features, we'd have features _ tagline, like we could see. If we had some sort of created then for pricing, we'd have one called pricing _ tagline. Get the idea. So it makes more sense to get rid of the class associated with that by clicking the X and creating our own. So again, start with global, and we're going to do tagline. So we're going to keep the same name, tagline, but we're going to just give it its own custom class. Hit enter or return. Again, we've got that selected, so let's go and customize that a little. Go to our style, come into layout. What we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of padding. So like we've seen, we're simply going to be using the options that are part of our framework. Add that in, come into our border, open this up, we'll set a border all the way around. Set 1 pixel in this example, solid. Going to reference our nice global colors. We're going to use our variable, so we'll call framework. We'll set this to be radius full. And finally, we come into our typography, click and set our color inside there as well. We've now created a tagline that we can apply anywhere else. So for example, where this tagline is, let's get rid of that class. So this does take a little bit of initial work, but once you've done it, it's set up throughout your entire site, and you can make those changes in a matter of seconds. So yes, there is a little bit of work, but I absolutely think it's worth doing at this point, because most of the time when you're building sites like this, you're going to be leveraging the power of templates where it's going to be dynamic information being pulled in. So once you've set it up, you might have 100 pages using the same template. You've had to change this maybe 2 or 3 times, but all 100 pages will show that tagline using the styling that you've set up. So finally, let's do this last one. So there's our taglines all set up. Now let's come in and add some content in. So we'll select our image, upload a couple of images. Now I'm not going to bore you by making you sit here and watch me do this. I'll add the first one in. We'll say we want this one. Insert. There's our image. If we need to make any changes, we can do that here. Making sure we select the class before we do it. So you can see this is set to a square kind of setup. Cover 50%, so it's going to be sitting in the center position. You get the idea. So now I'm going to quickly go and add in images for each of these. There we go. That's added all those images in. Again, like we've seen with the tagline, I'm going to do the same here as well, because we're going to use these sort of subheadings over and over and over again throughout our entire design. So let's select it. Let's remove this and just call this global subheading. Hit enter or return. Come into our styles, adjust our typography. We'll set this to be 2XL. Change our color to bring it in line to use our tertiary color in this example. And you can see now that's applied it. So we're kind of overriding some of these predefined styles and using our own global classes to override them and give us more flexibility. So as you can see now, we've got our second section in. How long has this taken us? Minutes, and we're already, partway through a design. We've got that flexibility. Let's carry on. Let's hit save just to make sure we commit those changes. This time, let's say we want to have a team section so we can show who's part of the development team for this particular game that we're building, this game website. So again, we've got a bunch of great looking design options which you can pick and choose from. Find something you think works well for you. Some of these now are using the loop, so you may have to create a custom post type and pull in the relevant data. But again, it's very, very simple to do, and it's also just a nice way of working and creating more flexibility. I would always recommend, if you've got things like this, ACF or any kind of meta sort of tool that allows you to create custom post types and meta fields and so on, is a better way of kind of creating repetitive information. So things like the people that work for you, or for example, things like testimonials, those kinds of things, they benefit from having a custom post type where you can easily pull in that data and again, create the template, drop it into your design, job done. So let's say we like the look of this one. We'll select this. We'll just say rename, got a team, and copy it, paste it in, and select it. So again, you can see there's our tagline. So all we need to do, get shot of that, type in global tagline, choose this, get rid of that, type in global. How easy is all this? Let's expand this out. Everything's looking okay there. So let's just choose, for example, our grid. So you can see this is using the loop grid. Now, strangely, when you're working with Bricks, sometimes it doesn't kind of update inside the editor to show correctly. So don't worry about that. Once you kind of refresh the page, it'll pull it in. But because we're using a loop, we'll just add one item in and it'll just kind of repeat that same information. So let's choose our image, select the team avatar, come into content and choose one of the images I've got uploaded. Let's grab this one, insert. So now we've got the first one in there. Let's hit save and refresh this page. And there we go. Everything is now showing the way it should do. Doesn't take long to make these changes, is it? Okay, we'll add one more section and then I'm going to show you how we can make changes inside Core Framework and how those reflect the entire site. So let's do one last one. Let's grab a pricing section. I quite like the look of this one, so let's rename this. Head back over and paste. There's our pricing section. So again, just do a little bit of remedial work. Let's grab our tagline, remove it. You can also then, if you want to, just use your colors to sort of customize these kinds of things. So for example, we've got this block with the features. I want to change this sort of outline, which is currently set to white, to one of my global colors, so I can control the outline or border colors. So it's all very simple. Expand this container out. There's our card features. So what we're going to do is we'll select our card features, come over to style. You can see a border's been set up. Let's expand this, change the color. We'll set this to our border color. So that's now picked up the relevant border color. Let's open up this grid and choose our last card. Let's use our sort of tertiary color here to kind of get that brand color into this. So again, let's select it from the list. Come to our background, change this over. We'll select our tertiary color. Text looks terrible, so what we need to do is come to our typography, set this now to be using light in this example. This might sound a bit strange. Why we're choosing light and showing dark is because we're currently working in the dark mode. So if we change this over, you'll see it'll go back to what it should be. Now, if we take a look at that, you can see that doesn't necessarily look that good. So what you could do here is set this to be using black. So we'll always use our black color, no matter what we set it up as. Let's switch back into our dark mode. Okay, so we've got our page basically created. We'll hit save, and now we've created our overall design. So now let's say you want to make some changes. The brand colors have changed. Like I said, it's gone from yellow to red. Then all we need to do is come back into our dashboard and into Core Framework, come to our colors. So let's use this tertiary color. We'll select the dark mode because that's what we're kind of working in at the moment. Let's set this over to be a sort of reddish color. I'm not going to be too picky about it. Hit save changes, and now you can see wherever that yellow was, it's now been set to red. This is a really simple example of how you could do it. So now we've seen how easy it is to be able to use these predefined wireframes, customize things, apply our own classes, make changes in Core Framework, and so on. What about if you want to add something else in, create something unique, but you still want to leverage the flexibility that you've got with something like Core Framework? Let me show you. So for our example, let's add a new section in. You can choose the section. I've got Advanced Theme installed, but I won't use that now. I'll just come over to the plus and we'll say section. Does the same thing anyway. So there's our section. Let's rename that to custom. Okay, let's say we want to create a 3-column layout. All we do is expand this out, and we'll add a couple of blocks inside there. There's our 3 blocks stacked on top of each other. So we know now that we want to change this over to be CSS grid because that's the most flexible way of working here. So we'll change it to grid. Okay, So now what do? Well, we could start doing things like applying a gap. So let's say, I don't know, 2 rem, and we'll say 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. Cool, we now have a 3-column layout. The problem is, this isn't tied into our framework. So if we want to make changes to this, we have to come into this page or template or any location this is being used, and you have to make those changes manually. So it makes more sense to get rid of those and use what we have as part of our framework. So our gap, we can right click and we can do things like say, let's set medium spacing. So we've got a space now between, whether that's vertical or horizontal. It's the same. This time, instead of putting in 1 FR or typing in what we need to set this up to give us flexibility, we can right click and we can choose the options from here. We want 3 columns. There you go, job done. That's now popped in exactly what's needed to give us that 3-column layout. We haven't had to do it. We now have flexibility. Want to change that on landscape? Cool. Let's just right click inside there and say we want this to be 2 columns. We now have a 2-column layout. Switch things over to portrait mode on your mobile and you can see we've still got the 2. Well, let's just change that now and set that to be 1. Now we switch between these and you can see there's our 3-column layout, still a 3-column layout, 2-column layout, and our 1-column layout. It's using standard definition and standard information, but we haven't had to type it in. And if we make a change to anything there, so a spacing, for example, or anything, you can come back into Core Framework, you can open up your layouts option, and everything is set inside here for your columns, your grid layouts, automatic columns, and so on and so forth. So we can make one change inside here, and everywhere will have that reflected. So hopefully what you can see is by leveraging the power of a framework like Core Framework, setting that up with your theme styles, so we're using the variables that are created as part of Core Framework for colors, spacing, sizing, and so on. We have huge amounts of flexibility. Using that alongside a blueprint means that you can hit the ground running in a matter of seconds or minutes at most, having everything set up for you. Then using something like Brixies for our wireframe allows us to hit the ground running with designs that we can tweak and do exactly what we want to get them customized. But we've got the hard work, the heavy lifting being done for us at the beginning. Then when you want to make changes, you can come back in here and make changes. And because Core Framework and Brixies works together, you don't have to worry about the two of those being separate to each other. And when we want to or need to, we've got control over our own custom variables and classes and so on, where we can set up exactly what we want. This gives you huge amounts of flexibility. And hopefully what you've seen there is that in the space of about 10 minutes, we could have a homepage set up with full flexibility, totally responsive, with colors and everything all configured for us. Pretty cool, I think. So this is going to help you become more productive. But as always, I'd love to get your feedback. If you don't use these tools, do you use the same kind of techniques and methods? Let me know in the comment section down below. All applicable links are in the description. Check out these videos next if you want to learn more about bricks, Core Framework, and all those cool things. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.